Imagine waking up tomorrow inside a castle. Stone walls surround you. Guards wait outside your door. Servants rush through endless hallways. From a distance, it looks like the ultimate dream. But the real answer is far stranger. Because owning a castle was not like owning a mansion. It was more like living inside a military base, a government office, a prison, and a small city all at the same time. Would you still want one? Your day would begin before sunrise. Not because you wanted to. Because hundreds of people depended on you. A castle was expensive, incredibly expensive. Every guard needed food. Every horse needed care. Every wall needed maintenance. Every roof leaked eventually. Every winter brought new problems. The image most people carry comes from fairy tales, large halls, grand feasts, colourful banners. Those things existed, but daily life was much less glamorous. Historians studying medieval castles have found constant evidence of repairs. Stone cracked, timber rotted, wells needed cleaning, defences needed upgrades. A castle was a machine that never stopped demanding attention, and unlike a modern house, you could not simply call a contractor. You were the contractor. What would that feel like? Imagine managing hundreds of workers while also governing surrounding villages and preparing for the possibility of war. That was normal. The medieval lord did not just own land. The lord was responsible for keeping order across that land. Disputes arrived constantly. Someone claimed a neighbour stole livestock. Someone argued over property boundaries. Someone refused taxes. Someone demanded justice. Many of those problems eventually reached the castle. Your home was also the region's administrative centre. People travelled for days just to bring complaints. Privacy barely existed. Even your meals were often public events. Visitors watched, servants watched, guards watched. The castle never truly slept, and neither did its owner. Why? Because castles were built during dangerous times. Their entire purpose was protection. The historian Mark Morris has written extensively about castles as symbols of authority, but authority only mattered because violence was always nearby. A castle was insurance against chaos. That meant constant vigilance. Look out from the highest tower, and you would see farmland stretching toward the horizon. Beautiful, but every field represented responsibility. If harvest failed, people suffered. If raids occurred, people suffered. If disease spread, people suffered. And eventually they looked to you. The romantic image of medieval power often hides something important. Power creates obligations. Lots of them. The larger the castle became, the larger those obligations grew. Would you enjoy being responsible for hundreds or even thousands of lives? Most people imagine feasts when they think about castles. And yes, feasts happened. Huge tables filled great halls, roasted meat, bread, ale, music. Yet even those celebrations carried hidden stress. Status mattered enormously. Who sat closest to you? Who received the best food? Who felt insulted? A seating arrangement could become a political statement. One mistake could create enemies. In medieval society, reputation was everything. The sociologist Irving Goffman would later describe social life as a kind of performance. Medieval nobles understood this instinctively long before modern sociology existed. Every public appearance communicated power. Every gesture mattered. Even clothing carried messages. A richly decorated cloak was not simply fashion, it was strategy. The castle itself was strategy too. Tall walls sent a message. Massive gates sent a message. Towers sent a message. The message was simple: do not challenge us. Sometimes that message worked, sometimes it didn't. And that is where castle life became terrifying. Because every castle owner understood one uncomfortable truth. The walls might fail. Modern people often imagine castles as invincible. They were not. Sieges could last months, sometimes longer. Food became precious. Water became precious. Hope became precious. The historian Philippe Contamine documented how warfare shaped everyday noble life throughout medieval Europe. Even during peaceful years, preparation never stopped. Weapons required maintenance. Soldiers required training. Supplies required storage. You were always preparing for a future crisis. Does that sound relaxing? Even the architecture reflected fear. Narrow staircases favoured defenders. Arrow slits protected archers. Heavy gates slowed attackers. Every stone revealed anxiety. Every wall told a story about danger. Then there was comfort, or rather, the lack of comfort. Castles look impressive today. They were often cold, very cold. Stone absorbs temperature. Winter winds found every crack. Fireplaces helped. But heating enormous rooms was difficult. Many people slept wearing layers of clothing. Smoke filled indoor spaces. Lighting remained limited. Darkness dominated much of daily life. Researchers studying medieval households frequently note how different sensory experiences were compared with modern life. Rooms smelled of animals, smoke, food, damp stone, and people. Noise echoed constantly. Silence was rare. Cleanliness was challenging. Luxury existed. Comfort was another matter. Would you trade central heating for a giant stone fortress? The answer becomes less obvious the longer you think about it. Yet castles also offered something modern life often lacks: visibility. Every day you could physically see your place in society. The castle stood above surrounding villages. Its towers dominated the landscape. Its presence was unmistakable. Psychologists studying status have repeatedly found that humans care deeply about relative position, not just survival, position, recognition, prestige. A castle provided all three. Everyone knew who lived there. Everyone knew who held authority. That feeling must have been powerful, perhaps even addictive, which helps explain why nobles invested enormous resources into expanding and improving their castles. They were not simply buying security, they were buying identity. A castle told the world who you were, but identity comes with risks. The higher your status, the more visible your mistakes become. Modern celebrities experience this. Medieval nobles did too. Rumours travelled surprisingly far. Political rivals paid attention. Allies paid attention. Family members paid attention. Marriage alliances shaped entire regions. A poorly chosen relationship could alter the future of a dynasty. Suddenly your personal life was no longer personal. Sound familiar? In some ways, owning a castle resembled modern fame more than modern wealth. People knew your name. People discussed your choices. People judged your decisions. The difference was that failure could trigger war. That raises another question. What about freedom? Surely a castle owner could do whatever they wanted. Not exactly. Many nobles owed loyalty to higher-ranking rulers. Kings demanded service. Military obligations existed. Political expectations existed. The anthropologist Joseph Henrich has argued that institutions strongly shape human behavior. Medieval institutions shaped nearly every aspect of noble life. Freedom was narrower than it appeared. A castle owner possessed power, but that power existed inside a larger system. Ignore that system and consequences followed. Some lost land, some lost titles, some lost their lives. The castle looked permanent. Nothing else was. Generations passed, dynasties rose, dynasties fell. Children inherited responsibilities they never requested. Many spent entire lives maintaining what ancestors built. That burden could feel enormous. Imagine inheriting a structure requiring constant repairs, constant staffing, constant political management, and constant security. Then imagine knowing your descendants would inherit the same burden. The castle was not merely property, it was a commitment stretching across centuries, and yet people still dreamed of owning one. Why? Because castles represented something deeply human: control, protection, belonging, status, meaning. Even today, those desires remain. Your apartment, house, neighborhood, or city often serves some of the same psychological functions. You want safety. You want stability. You want a place that feels like yours. The castle was an extreme version of those desires. Massive stone walls transformed ordinary human needs into architecture. That is why castles still fascinate people. Not because they were comfortable, not because they were practical, but because they turned invisible emotions into visible structures. Fear became walls, status became towers, responsibility became gates, identity became stone. The strange truth is that if you actually owned a medieval castle, much of your time would be spent worrying about repairs, about politics, about harvests, about enemies, about money, about the future. The fantasy survives because modern people see the walls. They do not see the obligations hidden behind them. And maybe that is the real lesson. Every era creates its own version of a castle, something that looks impressive from the outside, something people dream about owning, something that secretly demands more than anyone expects. So if you imagine waking up tomorrow inside a castle, surrounded by stone walls and waiting servants, remember what those walls really meant. They were never just a sign of power. They were a sign of everything you were expected to protect.